Guys, two intriguing heavyweight fights this weekend. This video is going to serve as a final prediction for both of those. We've covered both fights previously on the channel and on the podcast, but really just wanted to do a standalone final video to get my picks down on these two. Deontay Wilder versus Gerald Washington, WBC heavyweight title belt. Intriguing fight for my money. Washington has certain attributes that I like in this fight. He's 6'6". He's a big guy. You know, we're not used to seeing Wilder in with someone of his own size. So that's the first dynamic. The second dynamic is Washington's style is a style that I think could be effective against Deontay Wilder. Now, I'm not saying for 1 second that I'm going to pick Washington. We're coming on to that later on in the video. But the style he brings of being a counter puncher who is defensively minded and sticks on the back foot and really looks to exploit gaps in the weaknesses of their opponent, I think is valuable, and I think is a style that against someone who's as aggressive and as wide and as inaccurate sometimes as Deontay Wilder could prove really, really effective. Washington's big, as I've said. He's got good timing, he's very patient, he's very composed in there. My concern is that he is not the biggest puncher in the world, so I think that even if he is to find that gap in Wilder's defence, it's not necessarily game over. And I also think that he's possibly too low volume and too defensively minded. He kind of puts too little emphasis on his offence. And against a guy like Deontay Wilder, that's dangerous, because Wilder's a guy who's going to come out, who's going to be throwing a high volume for a heavyweight from round one. Wilder's quick, he's athletic, he's going to have notable advantages over Gerald Washington. I believe Wilder has more power, more snap to his punches, more hand speed, more natural athleticism. I believe he's got a better jab. I expect this fight will go one of two ways. I expect that either Wilder will struggle with Washington and the fight will become competitive, or I think that Wilder will be able to establish his jab from round one and really hammer Gerald Washington into submission. I wonder if Washington's the kind of guy where if Wilder starts establishing his jab and starts landing on him, Washington will go into a defensive construct and really just try and survive the fight. And I think if he does that, funnily enough, despite his effort being survived the fight, I think he'll probably end up getting taken out, because Wilder's a guy with legit power. Wilder's a guy who throws enough punches to find a gap. And I expect he'll probably have too much for Gerald Washington. It's a far better fight than the original opponent, Andre Waritz's, and it's a fight that I believe could be relatively entertaining, because you've got two very big guys, but a real clash of styles. I expect Wilder will be the aggressive volume puncher with the power, and I expect Gerald Washington will kind of be the back foot type player who operates as a technician. In many ways, Gerald Washington will probably be looking at the kind of game plan Tyson Fury implemented against Vladimir Klitschko, and trying to mimic something like that. However, I don't believe Deontay Wilder will fight the same fight that a guy like Vladimir Klitschko fought, because I just believe Wilder is much more committed to getting his work off, and a much higher volume at this stage of his career. So all in all, an intriguing fight. I'm going to pick Wilder by knockout on the balance of probabilities. I just think that Wilder will beat Washington to the jab in the early rounds and start to bust him up a little bit. And I then believe Washington will perhaps become more vulnerable to Wilder's array of power punches, because I think he has a tendency to maybe sit on the ropes and go into a defensive cell, and I think you can't really do that against Deontay Wilder. I think you've kind of got to give him something to keep him off you, or else he is a guy who is just going to lay the smackdown, so to speak. So I'm picking Wilder by knockout. This fight is actually a hard fight for me to pick, because I believe Washington's style could kind of create a Fury-Klitschko type fight where it's very cagey, very low volume. But on the balance probability, I don't think Deontay Wilder's going to allow himself to get sucked into that fight. I just don't think he's that kind of operator. I also do believe that Washington will catch Wilder at 1 or 2 points in this fight. I do believe he's got a decent array of punches. I do believe he's got decent timing, and I do think Wilder presents him with the gaps. If Washington was, a bit faster, hit a bit harder, really this is a fight where it wouldn't surprise me to see an upset. And I do think stylistically, Wilder has in the past perhaps had his tougher fights against slicker opponents. So, an upset wouldn't amaze me here, but really on the balance of probability, Is Wilder a car crash waiting to happen? Maybe. Is Gerald Washington that person to expose him? Probably not. I think Wilder's going to have far too much. So I'm picking Wilder by knockout. Obviously, he's coming back off an injury. That is a dynamic we've got to factor into this fight. And we'll have to see, how his hands hold up during this contest. On the undercard, another fight where we've got a new opponent. Ugonoh versus Dominic Breazeale. The fight was initially scheduled between Dominic Breazeale and Arthur Spilker. And I like Arthur Spilker, so I'd like to see him again. Both of those guys were coming off big losses. Spilker to Deontay Wilder, Breazeale to Anthony Joshua. And Spilker's been replaced, so Dominic Breazeale will now take on Ugonoh, who's a heavyweight. I think he's a Nigerian, a Poland-based Nigerian, I believe, who's been training with Joseph Parker and working with that New Zealand camp and Kevin Barry and all of those guys. Ugonoh's a guy I've covered on the channel several times. This is a massive step up for Ugonoh. He's got a lot of attributes, a lot of athleticism. He looks like a solid fighter. But really, the level of opponent he's been fighting with has been pretty woeful. So whilst Dominic Breazeale is no world beater, this is a fairly substantial step up in competition levels for Arthur Spilker. Dominic Breazeale showed a lot of heart against Anthony Joshua. He's truly a big guy. He seems truly a durable guy, and he's clearly got some heart and some determination. And this is kind of a crossroads fight for Dominic Breazeale, at least, in the sense that, having been badly hammered by Anthony Joshua, if he were to lose to a guy like Ugonoh, he'd have to be considering his options. So it's a close fight. I make Ugonoh a favourite. I think he's got a far higher upside than Dominic Breazeale. Breazeale, he's stiff, he's immobile, he's painfully slow, he's painfully robotic. I just feel Ugonoh has the potential to surpass him in terms of capability. There's a lot more flow, a lot more snap, speed to Ugonoh's work, and I just think he's the better boxer. He's possibly the bigger puncher. He's certainly the faster, more athletic guy. And I suspect he'll have enough. My initial instinct is that this is a fight that will go the distance. I think Breazeale may have some spells of success in the fight, largely because this is a huge step up in territory for Ugonoh, and there's going to be some adjustments he's going to have to make moving up to this class. This is top 30 in the world now we're talking, whereas previously he's probably only operated at top 200, if you like. So this is a big step up. I expect Breazeale's size and I suspect Breazeale's durability will give Ugonoh problems. When Ugonoh fought Julius Long, who's another massive big guy who's durable, that caused him one or two issues, and I suspect we'll see similar themes. But fundamentally, I believe Ugonoh should be winning the fight widely when we get to the latter stages. Do I think he's necessarily got the power to just get rid of Dominic Breazeale? Maybe not. I mean, Anthony Joshua took his time, and I believe Ugonoh will probably take his time as well. Is there a suggestion that towards the end of the fight, Ugonoh could, be getting his work off so comfortably and, landing so many punches that the referee could jump in and call a halt to proceedings? Possibly. But I think it's a good fight, and I'm hoping after this fight we will have a solid new contender in the heavyweight division. I believe a win over Dominic Breazeale for Ugonoh will put him towards the top 20 of the division, and I believe he's got the potential to be involved in some exciting fights and to generate some good support. So, for boxing, I kind of hope Ugonoh wins, and that is my pick, Ugonoh to win on points, although a late stoppage wouldn't surprise me, because realistically, Breazeale, we kind of know the limit to his capability. I believe that if he's to get the upset, and Ugonoh is a substantial favourite with the bookies, so if he were to get the upset here, it wouldn't be throwing anything new into the mix. He's not a guy who I think could come again and fight at world title level, whereas Ugonoh, maybe he'd be one to watch if he beat Breazeale in impressive style. Obviously, you've got the comparators to Anthony Joshua. I mean, I'm not expecting Ugonoh to blow Breazeale out, but if he did, people would say, wow, look, it took Anthony Joshua so many rounds, maybe it took Ugonoh a few less. So, that would certainly build his legend and build his name in the heavyweight division. But anyway, those are my two thoughts on this fight, guys. I'm going with the favourites in both. Wilder by knockout, Ugonoh on points. They're both very interesting fights, though. They're fights I'm going to be glued to, and you wouldn't completely rule out an upset in either. So let me know your thoughts. Who are you picking? How are you picking? Is it going to be knockouts or KO? knockouts or points even. Let me know your thoughts on Ugonoh. Let me know your thoughts on Breazeale. Let me know your thoughts on Washington. Do comment below. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel and haven't done so before, please take the time to subscribe. Many thanks indeed for watching.